this Codemotion style with our final keynoter, Matteo. I am very proud to present Matteo because Matteo has been with us from the beginning and also because he's one of the members of our great program committee. Matteo will talk about his career in open source and how taking part in this kind of projects is important to be a good developer. So, give a big round of applause for Matteo.
Thank you. Thank you for coming and staying late. It's an honor to be here. I would like to start this talk. So this talk is about open source and how to contribute and make a career out of it. But I couldn't start this talk without a great quote. In my experience, there is no such thing as luck. Obi-Wan Kenobi. No, this is not a talk about Star Wars, okay? Forget about it. A lot of you might know me because I'm part of the Node.js community. And, well, this talk is not about Node.js. Not specifically, at least. I am part of the technical steering committee of the Node.js Foundation, which means that I'm responsible for the health of the Node.js platform and project. So how many of you have installed Node.js in your life? Thank you, guys. I'm also a prolific author on NPM. I maintain 350 modules. And way more tricky is that those modules are downloaded a lot, some of those at least. It's a little bit tricky because it's, if you have a lot of downloads for your module, in fact, stakes are a little bit high, and if I did do a mistake, I have people screaming at me in 5 minutes, which is very nice. I have the best QA team in the world. So, how many of you know Yarn? Okay. You might not know that I broke Yarn. Not once, twice. So, yeah, sorry. I ranked 15 comments in 30 minutes. Sorry, not 15, 100 comments in 15 minutes, screaming at me, or something like that. Nope, was not a nice experience. So, I'm here talking today about open source because I'm sponsored by the company I work for, NearForm, to work on Node.js. So, you might say this sentence. How lucky you are that you are paid to write open source software. Or in Italian, beato te. Yeah, my typical answer to this comment is this face. I typically lucky, maybe not. Yeah, well, I am privileged. In 1998, my dad put me in front of a computer. No, it's not Curly, but it's me, okay? I also been privileged because my family sent me to uni and the University of Bologna, where I did my bachelor, my master, and my PhD. So, yeah, I spent a lot of time in Bologna, around 10 years or something like that. During my studies, I really wanted to make a career in open source, and I tried hard. In fact, the biggest question you can ask yourself when you start doing open source is, would you ever regret open sourcing some code? Should I be afraid of doing that? Now, let's walk a little bit through my skeletons. So, first thing, I did a parser, a domain-specific language in Ruby to write parsers. Would you ever use something like that? It was such a fun project, though. I loved it. I learned a lot. I also wrote a CoffeeScript internationalization library. Again, nobody cared. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Yay! I was doing such a great job. And I wrote a control flow library for Node.js, which you have never heard about. In fact, I wrote another one which got a little bit more popular. afterwards. It's completely useless, by the way, but it's a nice name. I started engaging more with the open source community when I released this library called LevelGraph. LevelGraph was a nice layer on top of a thing called LevelDB that introduced a graph database on top or something like that. This technique, the technique that I invented here, never became famous. This library never went anywhere. But the technique was used in some very popular database afterwards, so I'm very proud. Nobody credited me, but hey, no worries. That's what happens in open source, by the way, a lot of times. But the nice thing of this is some people noticed. I tweeted some of my role models, some of my heroes, and they said, oh, this is so cool. Where are you based? Oh, I was visiting, at that point I was in Galway, in Ireland. And in Ireland, I said, where are you based? Oh, I am in Galway. How come? We are in Ireland as well. We are in Tramore, which is in the south of Ireland. I didn't know I will go there plenty of times because, in fact, those are now NearForm, and it has been such a thing. So I landed my job thanks to this little thing. So this goes back to a nice question: how to be paid to work on open source, right? It's something that you might want to think. First of all, like the easiest path is to contribute to a successful open source project. It's not about doing something new. It's about, if you jump on a ship that's very successful already, somebody will very likely notice, and maybe you can find a career there on contributing. You can contribute to Kubernetes, to Node, to whatever platform you want. You can start contributing to V8. So some very hard things. And the more niche things, probably the better, the more successful, the more chances you have. You can write some successful-ish open source libraries and then get some sponsor. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not an easy path. Even more harder, but it's something that you might want to think into this era of startups, is write a successful piece of open source and then make a business out of it. Now, this last piece will mean that you stop writing open source. So not sure if it's exactly what you want to do. If you want to keep coding, probably like if you want to make a business out of it, then you become a businessman. You're not a developer anymore or something like that. The key part of working in open source is understanding how the full ecosystem works. And in fact, I think, and we think, myself and a lot of other people, that open source is art. It's not about open source. It's not about code. Why? Well, it is the thing. A lot of people, a lot of developers around the world are building and contributing things on the cloud, things on GitHub, to increase the common good for no purpose whatsoever. And in fact, art, if you look at the Renaissance, Rinascimento, it was sponsored. It was paid by very rich people. Okay, that's the hard truth. They look at the Medici and a lot of others. But who are the patrons of today? Like, who is paying for all of this? Like, who is maintaining? How can people live? If I spend all my day working on open source, how can I put food on the table? Like, that's a very basic question you want to ask. How can I get a mortgage? How can I buy a house? How can I have a family? Those are important questions. A key part of working in open source is understanding the difference between art and industrial design. Because you can create such beautiful piece of things working for a company or something that producing these beautiful design things that then are sold, and then you can make money out of it, right? They can pay a salary. But art is art. Like, you painting or you creating something, and then, well, maybe somebody will give me some money. I don't know. So one of the core messages at NearForm, and why I joined and I stayed for more than 4 years, has been that we are trying to figure out how to commercialize art. And in fact, it's our mission is that we help enterprises transform how they operate with awesome open modern software. Stress open. We use a lot of open source. So this is a very nice message. You will not see that a lot. But I want to create some art now. Come on. Well, the basic question here is, maybe I'm not good enough. Like, who knows? Like, should I do it or should I keep it to myself? Because I don't know. This is called imposter syndrome, and it has been studied a lot. And you can find a lot of things on the web. I am not an expert. I'm just talking for like the next few minutes. So imposter syndrome goes like this. You think that what you know is that little blue box, and this is what other people know. You see, oh no, I'm tiny. In fact, it's not like that. It's more like this. There is what you know and what other people know. You know stuff. One of my best friends one of my colleagues once was a fisherman. You know stuff that I don't, definitely. In our codes, so whatever. In fact, you can always produce value in open source. It's not required that you are super good. You just need to be willing to do it. And the reason for this is that maintenance is the curse of every successful open source project. Now, you have written some open source, and it became super popular. Now there's a lot of stakes at play, and you need to maintain the stuff that become popular. Now, you can't break anything. If you break something, people will scream at you. You will get haters. You will be shouted at. It's very easy to get 100 comments in 30 minutes, or to start a flame war on Twitter, whatever. This is something we care a lot in not breaking you when we release a new version of Node. In fact, I have my little skeletons. I don't have enough time to maintain all my modules, so this is the first one. So if you want to help me, this module needs a little bit of help. This first advertisement, please. The second bit is that if your project has too many moving parts, it becomes unmaintainable very soon, very quickly. If it's too complex and you are alone, like I am an open source developer, I maintain all my code, I don't want anybody, it's become very hard to maintain. In fact, you can create Frankenstein. And I did this mistake, so this is another project that needs some help. Mosca, second advertisement. The most important lessons about open source and about software in general is that people matter. Software is not, most of the time, is not about code. It's about people. People write software. You need to make them agree on things. And in fact, there is a limit to what you can do alone. Every other contributors to your project is the key to success. If you are alone, there are only so many hours during the day that you can work and you can do stuff. But having other contributors will make it possible to reach heights that it wouldn't be possible alone. If you look at a very nice thing, if you open the Node.js README, there is a huge list of people that are collaborators, more than 100. So there are more than 100 people that can help maintain Node. Now, not all of them are active. So maybe 40, 50 are active, but it's still a lot of people that can help. I want to thank a friend called Rod Vag. Now, Level Graph was built on top of this library called Level Up. And Level Up created this called open source, which is a fantastic idea, which goes by this. Individuals making significant and valuable contributions are given commit access to the project to contribute as they see fit. The project is more like an open wiki than a standardly guarded open source project. Now, what does this mean? Well, all of this went into the core of the Node.js philosophy. And you can see that from our collaborator guide, there's a nice thing about what are the responsibility of the node collaborators. And in fact, they have given the commit access, and anybody with a GitHub account may propose modifications and via pull request, and then will be considered to become collaborators. So you just need to become active with the project to become one. And more importantly, even more importantly, if you did some significant contributions and you have not been considered for becoming a collaborator, you can even ask to become one. So these are very critical things if you want to contribute to open source. You want to work in a community that values your contributions, that value the fact that you have made efforts into the project. If it's your project, it's like, oh, well, yeah, you work a lot on this, but then I'm never putting your name on the README or recognizing your work. Like, maybe you don't want to work with that in that community. There are communities like that. So if you want to work in open source, to work in a community that has similar values. There are a lot of those like this. So even if you don't want to become an open source developer, because it might not be what you want to go, the route for your career, you still want to be a good open source citizen, which is another key message of this talk. The major problem is that a lot of the authors, you might be using a lot of open source for your work from your operating system. Oh, that's Linux. Oh, maybe that's open source. Then you might use, I might be using Webpack. I might be using Node. I might be using Kubernetes. I might be using a lot of things. We write serverless functions. If we write serverless function, how much open source software is between the servers and there? So how to be a good open source citizen, it's very important. Well, first thing, help. Help is important. You should help. If you're using open source in general, help the author of such open source, the open source that you use. If you find a bug, fix it. Help with the issue tracker. This is fantastic. Like, nobody recognized the fact that a lot of the work of an open source developer does is responding to people on the issue tracker. If you start helping triaging issues and verifying bugs, it gives the author a lot of breathing space to work on other things. They will be very, very willing to recognize your work. And give back. If you are a company and you're using a lot of open source, you should be considering contributing back even a little bit. Might be fixing some bugs or throwing some money to the author, to that thing that you have been using and that you love, which might be a tiny bit of thing, but every euro that you put on the table matters. In fact, this goes with the next slide, which is not very nice. Don't expect a bug fix, which is another nice lesson about open source. So if you have a bug in an open source library, do not expect a bug fix. If you receive a bug fix, it's a gift. Sorry. There is a nice article by Aaron Hammer. You should read it. It's a little bit strong language. So one of the not nice things that you can hear one of the worst things you can hear as an open source developer is a sentence like this. I stopped using your library because you didn't fix this bug. It's your fault. So submit a pull request, okay? If you want, send a fix, okay? If there is a bug and nobody is fixing it, fix it yourself. What do you need to fix a bug? First of all, you need to know Git and GitHub. Most of the open source development happens on GitHub these days, or GitLab, or whatever, but all of them share Git. If you don't know these tools, learn these tools. They will also help in your career. So just a quick question, how many of you are not using Git? Fantastic. Everybody who is using Git? Perfect. Now, I have a question for all of you. How many of you know how to do a Git rebase? Good. You know, you're ready. This is one of the most important things that you need to know, how to do a Git rebase. You can't imagine how many people, when submitting a pull request, do not know how to do that and screw up everything. It's fantastic. You don't want to be in that position and feel a little bit ashamed when it happens. It happened to everybody, myself included. Also, always write a unit test, okay? The quality, the bar of quality of open source software is very high. It's probably higher than the code that you write, that piece of closed source software that you write. Very likely, if the software you are contributing to that have some unit tests or integration tests, you should add one for what you are contributing. If you don't, the committer will need to spend 1 minute to write this sentence. Can you please add a unit test? You know, GitHub has a nice feature that that you can have templates, and you can have a template for when somebody sends a pull request, they need to fill it. But they also can have a canned response, so that I can press Control-1 and automatically that sentence gets added. Yep. Then wait for reviewers. You know, there is the big red cross that you can get. It's probably not super encouraging, but it's also what happens all the time. People will review your code. Because even if you have the best idea ever, you might be totally wrong. And that's life. And the most important thing is that you need to convince others to, of your point of view. It's not, again, people matter. It's somebody else needs to see that what you are contributing is nice. And in fact, after that, you need to follow up and fix all those like big red cross and comments that happens. And finally, you get something landed. Hooray! To repeat and recap, do not expect a bug fix, okay? And if you use open source software, you are the last maintainer. Nobody. This is the hard truth of open source. Gets for free, okay? You get it for free. If you look into the license, it says I'm not liable of anything. So if it has a bug, it's up to you to fix it. If I got it by a bus, okay? Hopefully not. So if you are doing if you are a tech company these days, it's very likely that whatever you are doing, it's built on top of open source. And you should give back, really. I'm stressing this again. You should give back. Because if you don't give back, then people will start, your employees will start mailing the authors of that library and modules that you use with sentences like this. And they receive that multiple times. And it's not nice when, as an author, you receive this. If you do not help me, I will lose my job. I also have received. If you do not help me, I will not be able to feed my family. If you do not help me, you are a horrible person, and all of those type of things. These are very emotional sentences. So don't write those to the people that you depend on. Because if you do, then I know you are in pain, but you will put those people, if they haven't replied and fixed your bug and talked to you, it's because they would have a reason. It's not that they don't talk to you because they are not a nice person. Well, some of those are, but most people are good, okay? So you should consider that when you write such things. In fact, when I started receiving those a lot, I went into a little bit of a burnout cycle. Because, you know, if the moment that you receive all of those sentences and you don't have time, you go into this question. Should I stay up late to fix that bug? Or should I rest? Should I stay with my family? Or should I rest? How many hours do I have during a day? And you work like crazy, like a little thingy. And then when you are into this cycle and you have no time to dedicate to open source for whatever reason, then every new bug is sorrow. You are sad. You don't like it. And coding stopped being fun. Stop being the reason why you started contributing to open source and the willing to share goes to zero. You said, well, don't want to be part of this community anymore. And then what was your pride once? Then you left it rot. And there's a lot of pieces of open source that have rot over the year because the maintainer went away. So you might ask a very nice question after this, which is why? Why do you want to do all of this stuff? Okay, because I told a lot of things, and some of those were not nice. Okay, and it's a nice question because you need to check your motivation. Being an open source developer, it's all about will, grit, and be able to walk through even hard moments and hard choices. Some other people's career might depend on your choice. You don't know. How can you value your decision? What is your benchmark? It's very hard. So it can be emotionally challenging. So I'm telling you why I stick to it and why I'm still doing it. And the reason is that thanks to open source, I was able to meet the most awesome people. And this is just about it. Again, it's people, okay? And I want to list them just because. I want to thank Dominic, because that was the first person that, recognized my work. I want to thank Kian, the CEO of NearForm, Richard, Alberto, which I'm feeling the shoes this year, that he did the keynote last year. Then Paolo, Kelsey, Damian, Paul, Dave. I did a lot of talk with Dave. James Halliday, Barry, Luca, Peter, Matthias, Wendy, Pedro, Joshua, James, again, Snell, Michael, Mark, Adrian, Irina, Isaacs, Dan, Rod, Calvin, Anna, Brian, Thorsten, Max, Salvatore. By the way, Salvatore is that Salvatore. It's probably my role model, so whatever. If you don't know Salvatore, check it out at Antireth. He did a keynote at Codemotion Milan last year. It's fantastic. Feroz, Trevor, Max, Franzi, Colin, Miles, Yunong. Again, another keynoter last year. Dan, Magnus, Greg, Francesco, Brian, and Sooth. Thank you to all of you, because that's why I do all of this stuff. More importantly, the people that you will meet, the friends you will make, will change your life in ways you can't expect. And this is probably the hard truth. It's the hard truth about open source. You don't expect. This is whatever. My life completely and totally changed. I'm working from home, traveling the world, doing stuff. All of this was because I tweeted a guy sending my open source module that nobody cared about. So other nice thing that happened to me because of this is your talk changed my life. It happened here at Codemotion. That was one of the best sentences I ever received. I don't even remember the person that sent it to me, so it was nice feeling. Another colleague of mine, David Gonzalez, said I said good stuff. In fact, I did a lot of mistakes in my early open source days, and I started contributing to Node and learn how to do things. And you can learn from your mistakes and build new stuff with the knowledge that you have done, that you have right now. So I wrote this library called Pino. It's a logger for Node.js. It went from 0 to 300,000 downloads per month in a couple of years. I'm very proud. It's, by the way, the name Pino came from myself walking my dog, and in front of my house there was a pine. And they said, well, how should I name my logger? Well, that's a pine. I will name it Pino, because pine was taken. So, I'm not good with names, okay? But one thing that is critical for successful open source project are logos and marketing and promoting. All of these things are critical. Gather adoption. So if you want to gather adoption, you need to talk to people. Again, people. You need to convince others that what you have done is nice and cool. We went to present this to myself and David, the other co-author, and James, whatever. We went to present this to a lot of conferences to gather adoption. Now it's a thing. It has some people are using it in the open source world, and it's not like big, it's tiny library. And again, there's more people than me. We are 4 maintaining it now. And 52 people contributed to it, which I'm very happy, because I've done something that inspired others to contribute back to my project. So I'm very happy. I'm doing it, I'm trying to do it again. I'm not sure if it'll be as successful with this thing called Fastify, which again has some nice stats. And the thing that I'm more proud is there's 9 people maintaining this, and 70 contributors already. Not so much users, but 70 people have contributed, so I'm very proud. So to recap, the journey of an open source developer is amazing, okay? You might want to do it, you might want to not do it. Remember that you should contribute back to open source because you are using it, so you should not be a passive consumer of open source. One of the nice things about open source is that the technology that I have built is on every web developer laptop now. Seems a little bit frightening. And you know, I did all of this from Forlì in Italy, which is, you know, nowhere, no tech or very little tech or something. I want to thank NearForm, because if it wasn't for NearForm, it helped me and sponsored my open source activities. And I'm very proud to be able to be here and tell this story. And I would like to thank you all. And I'm like 5 minutes early, so I have some little bit of questions. It's fine. Or were no questions?
It's fine.
It's fine. So if there are some questions, you can have I can answer your question. Tweet at me all the time. I'm very happy to answer. If there are no questions or whatever, because I bored you for the last 40 minutes, I'm sorry. Thank you.